Hey, hi, hey. We back at Theory Bros again. I think it's number three,
Yep, episode 3.
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
it's the
Hey,
third
guess
one
what?
now.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. It's already I know it's weird because it's only episode 3, but it's already episode 3. We do this like
Yeah,
every 2 weeks. So it's already been about 6 weeks.
yeah,
But
man.
do you know I turned 24 in 9 days now.
Yeah, you finally matched my age.
Yeah, your birthday's in January, right?
January. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Um
so what's good? What's good?
oh,
How's your
um,
birthday?
On my end, not too bad. So next weekend, I'm going to be going to Nashville for a wedding and for like a tour of the city and stuff. So it'll be
Mm.
pretty nice. And I think the country music festival is going on, so there's going to be a lot of human beings just doing some wacky stuff in the streets. So
I like how instead you're not saying people, a lot of people just said a lot of human beings.
yeah,
Why?
I don't know.
Why though?
I really don't know. I just like to say humans. It's just fun. I think it's a
I
better.
guess. We are proven from last episode that alien just come visit us is actually Sam's.
Yeah, how'd you know? Don't tell
I don't know,
anybody.
man.
Don't tell anybody. Um, so how about you, man? How's things going?
It's pretty good. So not so long ago, I watched this movie.
Okay.
Um Everything Everywhere All at Once. It finally hit Thailand. And after I watched it, it just made me think about a lot of things, especially the fact that right now, the representation of LGBTQ community is, spreading. It's getting more acceptance.
Mhm. Very true. It
Yeah.
is. And it's Pride
So
Month. So happy Pride Month to,
happy Prime Month to everyone.
yes, everyone. I was gonna say anyone who's celebrating, but it's better to just say
Yeah.
everyone. We gotta be a little more accepting. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the course of discussion today, right? We're gonna be talking
Yeah,
about Pride
man.
Month. So maybe let's start out with a little bit of a breakdown. I actually haven't watched that movie. I know you mentioned it to me. I just haven't had any time to do so. But would you mind giving like a quick synopsis of it?
A quick synopsis is Asian is more like a Chinese immigrant
Okay.
that stay in United States for probably a really long time, decide to have some wacky adventure with her husband and um talk a lot of things with her daughter, which
Okay.
her daughter is definitely become an actual uh Chinese American
Hmm.
for real.
Hmm. Okay.
And after all that, you just put a bunch of kung fu martial arts and multiverse together, and you get this movie.
What?
Yeah, it's
what is
great. This movie is probably the best movie I watched this year. Not gonna lie.
what does that have to do with the multiverse and LGBTQ and like what does that have to do with that? I'm curious.
Hmm. How can I say this? So I don't know how long this movie is out in United States, and I don't know if
Oh,
this will be a
spoilers.
spoiler. So, spoiler alert, just 3 seconds. I'll
Mhm.
I'll give you guys 3 seconds. I think it's 3 seconds now. So, yeah, the story is about as I said, this woman. She's uh she's an Asian mom that trying to deal with a lot of issue, whether it's her family, mostly her family, her taxes, and a lot of universe starting to colliding.
Okay.
So in this movie, right? It will have another universe called the Alphaverse, where it's basically like similar to what we have right now, but they discovered the truth of the multiverse, and they are able to dimension jump more like that by doing some gesture that you can link to the other self in the other universe.
Okay.
And after doing that action, they kind of have this gadget things. Uh, it's kind of look like earbuds.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of finding. They're not. Good thing is they're not putting a lot of techno babble in this movie. So instead of like tell us and whatever it is and kind of be find some weird reason about it, they just kind of give it a gadget and not really say much. They just
Um,
poop. Yeah. So the gist of it is you need to do some wacky things that kind of not really symbolize, but your other self probably did something similar to this, or something that like a trigger. It's kind of like a trigger to travel to. It's kind of like to get your soul, your body sync with your other self in the other multiverse. So after you do that, you can get the skill, a certain skill. That's why like our protagonist and antagonist and a lot of things able to do kung fu and a lot of weird martial arts stuff. So besides that is not the point of the movie. I'm the point of the movie is about family.
okay.
Is target more on that issue, uh, on especially in Asian American family where like the older generation feel still really conservative and to not really strict, but it just feel like they are easily to disown their children,
Hmm.
or they can be too harsh on their child, and that's happened to this. So
That's that makes
yeah,
sense. I figured that's where
I'll
that was going, and acceptance.
mhm,
I think one thing I would like to talk about that's and I hate to start it off like this. I wanted to talk about the science, but since we're talking about acceptance, I figured I would start with this. And so I came across some statistics, and I could definitely cite them
mhm.
in the description. But so suicide rate of
Oh
of
my.
these individuals, so to speak, that we'll talk about here in a little bit in terms of the science. So I'm just going to label them as individuals for now. So people between the ages of 10 and 24, the second leading cause of death is suicide. I don't remember what the first is, but the second is suicide. The problem then comes into this acceptance thing is like people of the LGBTQIA plus are 5 times more likely to consider it between the ages of 10 to 24. So we're already considering a 10 times more likely possibility that you're going to entertain these thoughts. And then if you're coming from a non-accepted family, it's actually 8 times more likely. So,
Mm,
um, these people are of high concern, and it's quite scary. Um, a lot of these people have what is it called? DSDs, and DSDs are how can I explain DSDs in a simplistic term? So they're people that lie upon a spectrum of sexuality and gender, and these DSD people have I think it's like a 2 to 4% chance of having a DSD. And that, if you take the world breakdown of humans, 7.9 billion people, that equates to about 130 million. And 130 million is 33% of the United States population. So there's a lot of people out there that are 80 times likely to consider suicide between 10 and 24 because of acceptance and because of something that they literally just can't control. Like
yeah.
literally they can't control across the board. What determines your sex and your gender, your sexuality, are your chromosomes, your hormones, your gonads, your genitals. I mean, it's such um a huge number of combinations that, I mean, you can't change that. You can't change the way your brain developed. You can't change the way that your genome was sequenced. And these people are falling privy to these thoughts because of a lack of understanding and a lack of
Mm-hmm.
acceptance. So I hate to start it out like that, but it's it's super unfortunate. That's the reason why I'm, excited about Pride Month. I mean, it's kind of like Earth Day. It's kind of like, Black History Month, where we
Mm-hmm.
we devote time to these people, but like at the same time, like every day should be, Pride Day. We should be happy about who we are. I think pride is just who we are because everyone falls along the spectrum. Whether you're the most alphaist of alpha males, you still had the possibility to be mid spectrum. I'm not an XY alpha male. I'm fine by saying that. But truly, we don't know who we are until you go to a specialist, a biologist that like, or someone who that can like a professional brain scan or a genome sequencing. You don't know where you lie on the spectrum. So just coming out here and stating that you're an XX or an XY is deeply rootedly false and a horrible thing to say to someone who has battled something their entire life, feeling like they're not who they should be, and there's science to back that up. So, and I've done a lot. Like, I'm passionate about it because I'm a science communicator, and I really, I want to treat people, rightly and explain the facts. So people aren't out there doing heinous things to themselves, and also just saying heinous things to others. It's quite unfortunate. So I don't know. What's your takeaway from that?
Yes, I'm about to almost cut you off and talking about this kind of issue, but yeah, understanding is pretty much like the key of probably every life, to be honest. It's not just only like one one type of people, you know?
Mhm.
So imagine it's like this, you you pretty much like, fight for a lot of things. You're trying to be yourself and you're trying to get some understanding, but even the people that like closest to you, they're not even like take your back. I kind
Mhm.
of feel for them, you know, with that high suicide rate, but combined with like the issue I kind of stated is it's really sad scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe so with this acceptance, right?
Hmm.
There's some interesting history behind it. I mean, from my understanding, there was a time where, like, say even in Greek culture, where people who were homosexual were treated as gods. They embraced their sexuality in public.
Yeah,
Whereas today, like just in the 1960s, in the United States, doctors were actually encouraging parents to place their infants in surgery that clearly would define their sex.
yeah,
And there was social stigmas between the health field and the community that made parents keep their children's differentiation a secret from not only the public but also from their children. So these people were growing up, and um, as we can talk about here in a little bit, is that sex doesn't have to stay stagnant; it can change over
hmm,
time. So these poor humans are growing up and feeling a certain way, which is totally not abnormal, but totally, on a spectrum that might be different from the typical populace. It's better to say typical, the typical populace. And it's a barrier. it's a very weird barrier. Uh, so it's probably the best way to put that.
Not
And
even that though.
yeah, go ahead.
When you talk about like those old time 1960, I think during that time, they still have this thing called like gay treatment therapy, right?
Hmm. Trying to straighten them out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
that's annoying.
when being yourself is considered pretty much like a sickness or an ailment. That's just sad. I'm
Yeah,
kind of glad that like how we like pretty much like develop from I can't say it's like those time because like the Greeks did a whole lot better, but at least we developing more and more.
yeah. My assumption is something happened that made people change culturally and socially how they accept people who are a little different from them, I guess. Like I
Hmm.
said, we're all living on that spectrum, and just some people are more mid spectrum than others, and then they can kind of recognize those slight differences, and then they're like, "Oh, well, you're different from me," and that's it's kind of suppressive, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Even I'll give you this one. So the nursery blue for boys and pink for girls was actually established just in the 1940s. So I say just in the
yeah,
1940s, like because it kind of is yesterday in the in a large spectrum, like looking at time. But yeah, like before then, you could dress
it's
a boy in
actually
pink,
pink
huh?
for boys too. It's actually pink for boys too. Do you? I think it's like pro. How can? I watched it in documentary. I think it's called Explain in Netflix.
Oh,
They
okay.
actually did talk about like not like this whole issue, but more like clothing and the stigma of blue for boys is actually kind of changed. It's changed from like some old time before. It used to be pink for boys and blue for girls.
Yeah, I think in the 40s then it switched, which now if you were to dress a boy in pink, it's obscene to a large number of people. But it's just a
Yeah.
cultural thing. It's a social thing, right? Uh and I think it's important to note that gender is not a it's not like a scientific term, it's more like a social and cultural notation that is set by the understanding of men and women and their roles, right? Their roles greatly determine that. Who's the breadwinner, who's the, who does this, who does that. It's who stays for maternity leave, who does this, who, like it's all based on, what is socially acceptable. But the science is different from, this notation.
Mm-hmm.
And the science says that we're actually on a spectrum. It's sex is not straightforward whatsoever. It sex, excuse me, sexuality and gender are both because we have to. They're two different things. So yeah, maybe I could talk a little bit about the spectrum. Do you think I should dive in a little
Yeah,
bit?
I think you should. So, people can like stop talking about like, oh, but they only have like two sex, male and female. Those type of argument. Or where
Yeah,
like, you have testicle or you have vagina. Yeah,
ovaries, testes, and
ovaries,
ovaries. Yes.
those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Maybe so I want to put a disclaimer. I'll link some sources and whatnot. That way, you can build upon what I'm going to say because what I'm going to say is on 1,000-foot overview. I'm not a biologist. I'm a physicist and an engineer. I'm just someone who's passionate about sharing this information. So, what I'm
Yeah.
saying is appropriately sourced, but again, I'm doing it from 1,000-foot overlook.
Yes, mean we had the sources. So
Yeah.
it's not like that meme where like, oh, I made it the up.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
watch that video?
Yeah.
I've
I'm
seen it
definitely
there.
not making this shit up. Uh, Yeah.
So
So also, a lot of this information is also coming from a guy that I follow on YouTube. His name's Forrest Valkai, or Renegade Science Teacher, and he did a really good job in like a 30-minute video explaining all the stuff that I am, but just in way more depth. And at the end, he cited as sources. He had over 200 sources listed out. So it's good information. And the reason why I picked that video is because I saw that over 200 sources. I'm like, holy shit. Like this man went in depth, and I truly appreciated it. It actually gave me more understanding than what I previously had. Not that
yeah,
I was on the fence of anything. It's just more backing, I guess, so to speak.
yeah. So it's mean he not like Senator Armstrong.
He's not the Tucker Carlson of the world either. So
Mm-hmm. But
uh,
anyway,
yeah.
you might as well talk about it.
Sure. Yeah. So explaining the spectrum of male and female, right? There's gamete differences. So sex is determined in biology by your gamete size and abundance of gametes. So small and abundant, you're a male. You have sperm. Whereas large and few, it's typically you're a female and their eggs. But there's a hell of a lot of wiggle room here. Like life is super wacky to where it's very flawed. There's many species. First of all, let me just say that I hate that I have to establish this, but humans are animals. So let me start there, right? Humans are animals, and life is really, really wacky. So there are many species that change sexes throughout their life, or they change sex to be able to mate. So you could be a male for most of your years, and when it comes time to mating and there's a lack of populace that's female, you can switch to actually be able to mate and reproduce. There are some that make both sperm and egg, so you can have different gamete. You can have same gamete sizes. You can have differentiation in gametes. You can make both of them. You could have none at all. Uh, and then there's a thing called bilateral gyne. Is it gyne? Damn it, I can't say it. Where it's like you're an animal, but you're split completely through the center, where and humans can get this too. You can have both, you can have gonads where you have both testes and ovaries. And that's quite more, I would say that's more abundant than you think. Um, it- so already off the bat, we're seeing that there's a huge difference in gametes where like it's super variable on a very superficial level. You have so many different possibilities of sex determination, and that's not even talking about genes. So a lot of people will state like, oh, there's just the XX and the XY, and those determine females and males. So like males, they would say the Y chromosome is the male determinism factor of the chromosomes. Deeply flawed, extremely flawed. High school biology, if this is, I think this is the reason why a lot of people are not understanding of this. So high school biology will tell you that, and this is okay. I kind of understand why, because it's a very surface level, easy for anybody to understand, take a test and move on. So high school biology tells us that there's chromosomes, and the chromosomes then code the gonads that we talked about. The gonads then produce hormones, and then and also germ cells, and then these germ cells and hormones interact with our receptors and tell us whether you're a boy or a girl. And that's actually extremely wrong, very wrong. So chromosomes, let's start with chromosomes. People can retain many different types of chromosomes whenever the 23 of them split, right? So you get a typical 23 from your mom and 23 from your dad, and they come together. So whenever they split, right, you can get an X, an XY, an XX, XXX, XYY, 1X,
One.
XXY is actually a very common one. It's called Klinefelter syndrome, and is the honestly it's most common chromosomal deviation. Actually, 1 in 600 males can have the XXY, and it produces actually lower testosterone. Our cells can also vary with total combinations of these chromosomal construction, right? So they build these cells, but then the collection of cells have then different chromosomal how do I say chromosomal deviations. So the collection of your cells can also help determine where you're at on the spectrum. And this leads to like a very ambiguous sexual characteristics for both male and female reproductive body parts. So for instance, you could have gonads, like I said, with half the testy and half the ovarian tissue, or full testy, full ovarian, and then it varies in between. And at least 25 genes play a role in sex differentiation, where which kind of it leads to ranges and differences as well. So like genes like SRY and WNT4 are two examples of genes that push these differentiation in your gonads. So at 1,000-foot overview, the chromosomes that we have are so like push us to be actually in a spectrum between I would say XX and XY. That's your typical male and female, but then you can get all of these sorts of variations and combination that can put us in a spectrum between those two, between male and female. So, and that's not even talking about the brain. This is just talking about chromosomes and gametes. And I'm totally disregarding hormones as well, right? Because these hormones are then produced. But the problem is you can produce a shitload of testosterone, but then if your receptors don't work correctly, then it's totally disregarded. And then you have a lack of testosterone, or just a lack of understanding of whether you're male or female. So there's so many different things at play that creates a huge order of combinations that make it more unlikely that you are total I hate to say alpha, total alpha male, right, in the patriarchal society that we live in, or a total female. So just 1,000-foot overview. um I don't know, do you want to say something, or I can continue? I'd like to talk about the brain just a touch.
Oh no, man, I'm interesting. I'm listening.
Okay. I think the last thing I will address is the brain, and then y'all can go listen or read any of the articles that I'll post. That way, this sounds a lot more how do I want to say concrete.
Link
So
definitely in the description.
yes, it will be. And also, if you have questions, I'd also be happy to answer them if you have them, because I know this is quite confusing. It's probably revolutionary to you as well, and it goes against um, your high school education that told you that this was a concrete way of how life works. So
Hmm.
also a really important thing is, I pick on the binary options a lot in life. I'm like, things aren't ever a 0 or 1. It is always a spectrum. And it's kind of funny that even at the most fundamental level of who we are, things are on a spectrum, right? Like the typical day-to-day choices shouldn't be a 0 or a 1, but we make it to be because it's just super simplistic. And it's so much easier for us just to say, you're male, you're female, let's move on. And that's not the case. It's just not. So with that being said, let me talk about the brain, and then we can further discuss. So, and even if like any of these other things didn't get to you, our brain structure throws itself in the ring, and the areas of the brain called the and I'm shortening these because For one, I'm not a biologist. And two, it would just be too long to spell out. But it's called the SDNPOA, the BSTC, and the VIPSCN. They can overrule how you identify versus the genitalia that you even have. So you could have a penis, and your brain in these three different areas could all tell you different things that make you feel like you shouldn't have a penis. And that's where we see a lot of trans people state the way that they are. So, the three areas of the brain that are dimorphic. That Yeah, man, go ahead.
Sad thing is, I think that is probably the reason why like people in the 1960s used that as a claim on why being, have the thoughts of like some different gender than you,
Hmm.
than yourself is an ailment because of that.
Yeah, they're playing the card of it's a mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just kind of put a side note on how messed up this the kind of like humanity as it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not also, and this is, I'm not defending them by any means, but like it's also just like a lack of understanding, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure we've come a really long way in neuroscience to kind of understand that these three these three areas within the brain can vary in size, and they're dimorphic, where they can take different, I guess, different shapes, different forms that outweigh one or the other.
Mhm.
So as we develop this understanding, we're now more also understanding of the people who have or battle these issues. And it's not that they're issues; it's just this. These are the cards that are dealt. They're human beings. We should treat them with equal respect.
Mhm.
Um, so these three areas of the brain that are dimorphic, that work independently, might I add, independently, so that if you think about it, just like simple combinations, right? There's there's two different causations, there's three different outcomes, or there's three different areas, so you're going to have eight different combinations just in the brain alone that aids in determining your sex. Then, as we previously talked about with the types of gonads that you can have either testes or ovaries, but then you could also, but there's also another four different different determining factors, because you can have neither, you can have both, or you can have one or the other. And that's in itself, with talking just about the gonads and your brain, that's 32 different types of combinations of what you could be. That's not even
Mhm.
talking about chromosomes. So there's honestly, it just leads to a large number of combinations that is probably more simplistic to just state that sexuality and gender is placed onto a spectrum, rather than just trying to throw them in, trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and determine these people as yay or nay. I think it's actually more interesting. Don't you? I think life is more interesting whenever you have a different amount of people. It's kind of like fingerprints, right? Everybody, because of
Yeah.
all these combinations, you can, you can be distinctive. Isn't that cool? We should treat people as unique rather than as an outcast. I find that interesting. But that's probably our tribalistic past as well. Trying to associate people in groups, and it's easier to say zero or one. But I think it's more
That's true.
beautiful if we say that everyone's a little different. We're all on a spectrum, and it makes it easier to treat people with respect.
I agree.
Mhm.
So this is kind of like an more like additional fun fact about human fingerprint and how different it is.
Ooh.
Do you know that koala have a very similar kind of like type of fingerprints to human?
No, really?
So yeah, if you want to get away with crime, you just kind of get yourself another koala just to touch things, and they'll throw them off.
uh, we did not tell you this. That was just fun fact information. Do not try to cite us whenever you get caught by the police.
Yeah, man.
That's really cool. Honestly, like, you know how I was saying earlier that animals, I mean, life is just wacky and we're an animal
Mhm.
and we're on the animal kingdom. There's so many just cool examples of how sex and gender is just honestly like fluid on a spectrum. It's super freaking wild. Like I have some notes here. There are some species where obviously the males are bigger and stronger than the females. We kind of see that for the most part. Obviously, there's the spectrum, right, that we've been talking about,
Mhm.
typically in this society, in humans. But there are plenty of examples of animals that females are much stronger and much more capable in than males. That's called the matriarchal societies. So, sorry, go ahead, man. What's up?
And the leading example from that one is hyenas.
Yeah, yeah.
Hyenas is cool. So that is matrio matriarchy,
Matriarchy. Yeah.
matriarchy society. So in that one, hyena males is much smaller than hyena females.
Hmm.
And what even kind of really scary is female genital, the hyena ones, is actually kind of look like a tube. It's kind of look like a penis.
It's a pseudo penis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. You beat me to it. I'm glad you did because many of these species, yes, like the females are bigger, but if they were the same size, they're not dimorphic, so you wouldn't really know what's male and female unless you literally opened them up and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's male and that's a female." That's pretty sick in itself. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
also many species where there's like 3 genders or more than 3 genders. There's different types of animals that will make like multiple types of gametes where if you wanted to call it that way, you could say there's male and female, but then there's a subsection of male and female that has this many different types of gametes that are of different sizes. Or there's just none at all. And you're just like, I don't know what you are, but like you're still reproducing. So that's pretty cool. There's also many species, including humans, that have male species that contain mammary glands that can produce milk no matter what the circumstances are, which is pretty interesting as well. I like you, like I've seen people on TikTok that like are literally squeezing milk out of their nips. And I'm like, bro, you're just an animal.
One
um,
question.
yeah, man.
Why?
Well, I don't
Why?
know. I don't know. We're a very interesting species. I
Well,
don't know.
that's just another example of Sam being an alien. He just kind of think of us as a very interesting species. So entertain Sam's more. Next time just send him kind of good memes.
Yeah, dude. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm an alien. I'd love to hear it. I wish I could get a poll going. So one day when we go live, Pan, we'll make polls and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
But
we will make poll on who's the alien.
yes. Now, the I do want to communicate this. The only difference between us as human beings, from what we understand now, and the rest of the animal kingdom, is that we can fully communicate how we feel and think, etc. That and honestly, that should be like super exciting because we should embrace our differences and talk about them. It's like I said, it's the fingerprints. Like everyone is different, and it's just a really interesting talking point. Um, I I love the fact that we can actually say like how we feel. And this is very interesting, man. Like the more that I've thought about this, about the spectrum, there's been times where I've grown up and this is I guess this is the central point of the episode where it's like I've grown up and for some reason, like just out of nowhere, dude, like I just cry. Like I don't get it. Like my hormones act differently. I've thought different things that's not from the patriarchal view of society. So
Mm-hmm.
this shit's real. That's probably the best way to say it. Like, and I'm saying on a personal, like I'm also advocating, I'm speaking science, but I'm also speaking personally where I've felt these things and I know that I am and I'm cool with saying I know I'm not the alpha male. I don't produce full testosterone. I have antlers and a big ass beard and a huge mane. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with it. I think it's better to be in touch with who you are rather than trying to pretend um, like you're not like you're somebody else, and I think that's
Yeah,
dangerous as well, and it can be dangerous because you're then pushing that ideology on other people who are struggling as well, or just trying to live their
true,
lives and just exist, man. Like, just people are people, let them be people.
true.
Yeah.
Just nothing wrong being a sad boy.
It happens. I mean, that's the hormone aspect of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the thought process that's probably being pushed by those not probably that is being pushed by those three different locations within your brain. So the thoughts and the feelings are definitely there, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And also, let me say this too. So it's not an abnormality. Like, we shouldn't treat people like, because we're all on the spectrum. It's not an abnormality or a sickness, or I didn't even like saying syndrome earlier, but it's just a by chance. That's that's all it is. It's just how things are sequenced, how your brain develops. Um, it shouldn't be treated as anybody's different. Well, everybody is different. Not that you're male and then this person's sick in the head for thinking that they're somebody else. It's like, no,
I
no.
think those type of problem also came from like long-winded culture,
Yeah.
a very back to the bone culture,
Mhm.
where we basically become a patriarchy society. It's pretty much due to the soul culture thing and how they push it, which you can see it through whether it's mythology, which I'm gonna excluding the Greeks right here because there's the Shad out of this one. They are
Yeah.
Shad and base W, not fill off. But yeah, from whether it's China or Southeast Asia culture, just like mine, or even Christian culture, we always pushing the pretty much like the agenda of patriarchy agenda
Mhm.
on and not only just it's basically sexist. That what it is. I can't find any like a better word for it.
Yeah.
Which that is just like a very long history and how it's like just keep pushing down on this one
Mhm.
to the point that like we basically kind of a lot of people basically got harmed from these old just old thoughts or philosophy. It's just
Yeah.
wrong.
Do you think that there is a moral arc that's being followed? Not only just maybe even you can include science with this, but or you could or not include it. But do you think that there's a moral arc that we're following?
Moral arc.
Yeah,
Mm,
where we're actually starting to have a better understanding and a
I would
better
say
approach to.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. At least in this past 10 years it's get a whole lot better. I think it's just come from like the fact that like LGBTQ community getting more acceptance
Mhm.
as a human being and they being more vocal about it too, which is
Yeah.
nice. Mm, and also just a very good representation, whether through like a media or just activists themselves.
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna supporting any how can I say this, the opposing force, which they gonna say like, oh, because they be more vocal, that's why I'm kind of get tired of seeing them, those kind of thing. Like, oh, you putting a flag in the back, like, why are you trying to show off that in me?
Mm,
That type of people, I'm not gonna supporting those claim. I'm gonna say like, keep doing you. Yeah, just do what you're doing. It's good.
mhm. I see that. And I add, I think that the more we progress in terms of communication of science and the propulsion of science, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the same kind of dilemma of racism, right? Where, and this is where this is, I hate to say this, but this is kind of more of a woke interpretation, but it makes sense, right? The more that we can correctly not push, but explain the process of evolution, like people will understand that people are people and we're all rooted from the same area in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and it's directly correlated with what we're talking about here. Biology that's appropriately explained to the masses in an understanding and layman term, kind of like how I did earlier, but maybe even more layman, because I talk pretty fast about a lot of different things. Um, if we can communicate that correctly, then the biological understanding of human beings will help us understand that again, people are people, and we're all just a little different on a spectrum. Understanding that people moved away from Africa, and the first Homo sapiens moved from Africa, and they were coming in contact with the Neanderthals and coming in contact with the Denisovans and the other different species of hominids at that time. They
Mm-hmm.
also adapted to their environment, which created different skin colors, different ways that the eyes were shaped to keep them from dying from the cold in Siberia, and also lighter skin because it was more adaptable in the north where things were cooler and there was less sun. So you needed less melanin. So you had to get your vitamin D. Like there's so many different things that have shaped our evolution that created a bunch of different types of people. And as soon as we can communicate that correctly on a layman standpoint, so everybody understands, I think we'll have an even more morally acceptable race of people, because like people are on board because of the social and ethical implications, but also putting the science that's a concrete foundation there will just really help out. So
Yeah,
yeah, happy Pride Month.
true.
Yeah,
It's just basically, people adapting to climate, social,
yeah,
culture,
yeah,
whatever it is, and that's just how we make it ourselves become, a human.
definitely, definitely. And I will say that I came from an area of the country that's not very, I wouldn't say accepting, but maybe just lack of understanding. So I was surrounded by a lot of unconscious bias growing up, but today, with more exposure to education and exposure to people that aren't like me growing up, that thought I was kind of, an alpha male and played multiple sports and whatever, uh, I've come a long way, and just I've felt enlightened, and I treat people with equal respect and dignity, because we're all here, right? I put a TikTok out explaining the chances of being born.
Mm,
It's practically zero. Like you might as well just say zero, because because the one over the denominator, that n number is so stupefyingly large that it's just zero. So we're all here on a very slim chance. We might as well try to make the best of it. Why suppress somebody
mhm.
that literally is here by chance, the same chance that you are, but and just was dealt just a different combination of cards. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, with that though, some people might actually argue and like, oh, but what if, human is not that hard to, exist or whatever. It's not just it's not the point of like as a human. It's more like of you being
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you. That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah, like the chances of a species being around is a lot larger in retrospect to everything, but like you as an individual that was coded by your parents, grandparents, all the way back to the beginning of hominids is so stupefyingly small that it's practically zero. Just even the just even the odds of your mother and father mating
Man, yeah.
is stupefyingly small. And then add like generations of interaction that led for you to be here to listen to this podcast. So just embrace life and just understand that everybody is here, you know, on the same chances that you are and enjoy it together. It's actually awesome and beautiful that life
Mhm.
has so many different variations. I think I think life would be boring if it was binary. It'd be stupid.
That's true.
So stupid. It'd be too simplistic
Too
and it'd be too
easy.
easy. Too easy.
Oh, and also gone at the counter for Sam being an alien. He said, "Oh, the the chance of your parent mating. What kind of people say that? Just mating. Yeah,
Yeah, man,
right.
we're animals. We're animals. That's cool in itself, right? We're animals that can actually uh,
Mhm.
express our thoughts and feelings. That's so fascinating. Truly.
That's true.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess I'll back up and say like other animals mourn and things, but I don't think we just have enough evidence to tell whether the other animals do it on the same level that we do yet. Yet.
Well, I don't know, man. Insect is pretty cool. At least they are very wacky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. We just kind of focused on the animalistic side of things in terms of sexual orientation and gender, right?
Mhm.
Or sexuality and gender. So even plants, dude. Plants are just so crazy. Fungi too. Like that they're they're wacky as well.
True.
They fit the bill of like it's kind of the same where it's like if they don't like some species if they don't get that mate, they'll just do it themselves. Like it's cool how they spread. There's so many different the ways that they do it. It's actually quite interesting. So
Out of that, another one that I really want to talk about is the bonobo.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So the bonobo is some kind of like a species of apes. They're
Yeah.
very intelligent
Hmm.
and their social structure is very interesting. They are probably the species that's like very kind of you would never see them kind of arguing or fighting each other. You're just gonna see them mating.
Yeah, their makeup sex.
Yeah, and they are just very cool species because like they basically throwing all those social sexual agenda, those type of thing out the window.
Yeah.
Cause like if another male are fighting each other for any whatever conflict, they're gonna they're gonna try to solve it as quickly as they can by mating the
Yes.
other male.
Good point.
And they will also like beside fighting is like they mating, but they also mating just for fun, similar to like what dolphin and human did. They just basically like, yeah, we just like it.
Yeah, good point. Oh, yeah, good point. I didn't even mention this earlier, but so we're not the only animals that do stuff that's like not hetero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conventional, like what you would imagine to be conventional. Actually, the conventional thing in nature is just to do whatever the hell you want. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
have sex with a male, It happens. They just do it. If you want to have sex with a female, they just do it. Like it's very common. We
That's
treat
true.
it as such an abnormality to where it's pretty suppressive in culture. So like if you
While
just wanted to
nature
do it,
just
just do it. Like there's no
yeah,
stopping you. Just be
while
safe
nature
about it.
just yeah,
Don't
while
spread
nature just
monkeypox.
kind of look, bruh.
Sorry, man. I didn't mean to- Go ahead, man.
While nature just kind of look at this and just like, yeah, you okay to do whatever, man. It's all cool.
Yeah.
Like what I said, the bonobo did it. It's fine. They also have this a species of birds that they'll kind of have like a three social structure. Well, like they will be a same species, but they will have like an alpha and a beta and a gamma, this type of things. Where like the
Mhm.
alpha is like kind of alpha male, have a lot of mates, but the female birds or the mating couple
Mhm.
is they are just kind of not really like this alpha because as an alpha bird, this one will kind of not really taking care of the servant or the mating couple much. And the beta one is like very dedicated and have a very loyal mating couple,
Mhm. Hmm.
which that's is where like the alpha bird will kind of kill this beta bird or just kind of try to steal its mate, which that will be pretty hard to get the female. Uh, it kind of very hard to take its pairs
Okay.
because like even though you beat the guy, the mate will probably fly away and try not to mate with you. And now the
Mm.
gamma is what is the wild card in this one. They are disguised as a female bird in the alpha,
Oh,
so they can get a chance on mating with its alpha.
no kidding.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
not kidding.
Infiltration. They're ninjas.
Yeah,
That's
which
awesome.
yeah. So they are basically, getting railed by the alpha bird, that's for sure. But they also, if they're trying to do something similar to this with the beta bird, they cannot do it because, the beta bird pair is too loyal. The only thing they can beat up is by, getting the alpha.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of like rock paper scissors, but birds.
That's amazing. Birds are
Yeah.
fascinating. They're super fascinating. I also want to throw one more thing into the loop that we didn't talk about because it's kind of an outside source, but it's also a way that nature kind of determines sex. So there's also different species out there, like reptilian species, specifically tortoise, that their sex is temperature dependent. So
Oh
they'll lay
wow.
their eggs on a beach, say they'll lay it in a shady spot, and depending upon the temperature, it can be mostly female, mostly male. And if the temperature's too hot, it can go from male to female. And they call those literally hot females.
Mm,
Biologists, man, they're so good at naming stuff. But
it's pretty
super
funny.
cool. Yeah, and I'm sure you'd like this. Well, kind of not like it, but it's very interesting. I've talked to Dr. Jeremy Conkle, and he studies microplastics, and he was on the podcast for the ditching plastics episode, the everything
Mhm.
steam ditching plastics episode. And anyways, we were talking and we talked about turtles, but he was studying how turtle sex is being pushed towards the female end of the spectrum because beaches are getting hotter and hotter, not only because of global warming, but because of the plastics that is laying all over the beach, which is allowing more of a, how do I want to say, a heat bank esque approach to thermodynamics, where you have more heat capacity, and
Mhm.
it's making it hotter, and which is ultimately changing the sex of tortoises. Very interesting concept, but it's very real.
Mm-hmm. Very
Yes.
scary.
Very scary as well, uh, in terms of plastics and global warming, but very interesting that like sex can also be determined through temperature through certain species. I'm not sure if that's also a thing with like humans, but it would be interesting to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Be very interesting. I don't know if that would be an actual thing. I haven't heard about it yet, but I might do a deep dive just to find out. It's a problem, dude. I'm too curious.
So this is kind of like another history fun fact about turtles
Ooh,
or
okay.
turtles. Do you know that like we used to have this giant turtles, right?
Okay.
But they actually got extinct because its meat is too delicious.
Sharks getting after it or what?
Human is actually getting it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. What even kind of like cruel, kind of like very dark humor about this is like the fact that like any sailors trying to, trying to get this giant turtle to any scientist through, through ships, right?
Mhm.
But they never, they never get a land on it because the sailors already eat all of them, and then when they get into the hands of like any scientist to, get a record,
Oh shit! I've never heard this. That's
yeah,
actually
search it,
cool. Hmm.
it's kind of dark and dark humor about this. I'm just like, we, yeah, it just tastes good.
Turtles.
Giant turtles get extinct because people love to eat it.
Let's see. Giant tortoise. Extinct for 112 years. The Galapagos giant tortoise. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So, I actually heard a clip from a biologist that was looking for the giant tortoise, the Galapagos tortoise, and he actually found one. So they're not completely extinct, but they were said to be. And that's the thing with a lot of species because like Earth is massive. But I love and hate the the story there, right? Sailors just be eating
Mm-hmm.
all these tortoises and then they go extinct. That doesn't surprise me at all by any means, but
I
it'd
mean,
be
bro.
hopeful if they weren't. It'd be really cool. But yeah, so I guess we've talked about a lot in this episode, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll give you a chance first to do your parting thoughts, because I have a quick and simple and dirty one to get us out of here. So, what do you got to say, my guy?
Mm, not really. Kind of have fun enough spitting fun facts.
That's fair. Happy Pride Month for sure. I know I said it
Happy
already,
Pride
but
Month.
it's embrace who you are. Definitely embrace who you are. Don't just treat Pride Month as Pride Month. Treat every day as Pride. You know, be proud
Mhm.
of who you are and the fact that you're on this earth and that you can share it with so many people that can share their thoughts and feelings. And
This
don't feel like
also
you're alone. Good.
this also apply to Black History Month
Yeah.
and Women Day as well.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cause
Just be
yeah,
proud. Be proud of who you are.
be proud of yourself.
And understand that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are now coming around to understand, you know, your side of things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look at me. I'm a white male from the patriarchal society growing up, and I now understand where you're coming from. Kind of. I'll never
Mm-hmm.
fully understand, but I'm definitely with you in the stance, with you in the fight. Uh, in one last thing I want to say is that just to really drive this home is that unless you've had your brain scanned and unless you've had your genome sequenced, you have no actual idea of what you are or where you are on the spectrum. You might not be the alpha male that you think you are. and you
Mhm.
might not be the female that you thought you were. So I think you should just not let it bother you
Mhm.
and actually be more curious about what you are and embrace the fact that there's so many people that are different. Don't treat people as different, treat everyone as different. Change your perspective. So
Mhm.
that's my final thoughts. But
Good clothing, man. Good closing. I like that.
yeah, so maybe we should do a call to action. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm an alien.
Mhm.
uh, you know, also let us know what you've experienced. You know, what have you dealt with? We'd like to hear. If you have any questions about what was said, also if you read any of the articles or watch any of the videos that I've linked, talk to us about it. We'd love to hear it in the
Mhm.
comments for sure. So
Also, thanks everyone from the last episode where we got like 1,000 views from
yeah,
for our podcast. It's impressive. Thanks a lot, man.
yeah, big thanks. Well, the first episode we had 1.7K. The second one we had 1.1. So we really appreciate it. Also, please subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 followers, and I want to kind of plug that right now because the idea between what Pandy Pit and I would like to do is we would like to go live with this. We would like to do live
Mhm.
sessions, have talks, answer some of your questions, and also we want to do donos where when you donate, we're gonna put I'm debating it's probably gonna be about 40% of our earnings is gonna go towards a a poll. I'm gonna make a poll. And then the donos will go to what you choose out of the poll. So I'm going to give like a multiple choice, say like it's one tree planted or
Doctor
Pavati Ocean
Without
Pickup,
Borders.
Doctors Without
Without
Borders,
Borders.
something that's socially and environmentally acceptable for change is what we're going to
Mhm.
do. So that's what we're trying to go for here. We're trying to get that. We'd like to get that by the end of the year so we can start really kicking that stuff off next year. So we're
Mhm.
doing it all for the right causes, and we can't do it without you. So we would really appreciate that sub. So thank you very much if you have or if you're going to. If not,
Mhm.
do it.
And yeah, sorry for sounding kind of like begging for subscriber or begging for views, but yeah, thanks a lot. It just sound bad.
Like there's been I watched so many videos where they're like, by the way, hit the bell down below and make sure you subscribe and et cetera. But like we just want to do it so we can do something good, right? Um, we have full-time jobs, but we also would like to, you know, push money towards these events because we still have to
Mhm.
survive. We still have to make money, right? But we want money being pushed to a good cause. So
Mhm.
that being said, this is the third episode of Theory Bros, and we're actually making a new logo. It's going to come out soon. The graphic designer that I hired is actually in the works of that, which is super exciting. But thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you. And Pan, it's been fun as always.
Always.
All right. Ciao.
Uh, bye.